Hey everybody, on Les Stroud's Wild Harvest, I do show you some tips and some techniques for gathering wild edibles. But the reality is, there are some risks associated with doing that. And so the only way to safely and properly gather wild edibles is to read your books, go online, and most importantly, seek out and learn from a local wild edible plant expert. I guarantee you there's somebody in your area that is passionate about wild edible plants, and they can teach you safely and properly how to partake of the wild harvest. I wanted to show Chef Paul Rogalski my version of paradise. Little cabin in the woods. That should surprise nobody, I suppose. Temagami, Ontario is situated in between two kinds of forests, the Great Lakes Forest to the south and the Boreal Forest to the north. Makes it a crossover region and entirely unique. If you were to draw a picture of the most perfect canoeing topography, you'd basically be drawing a picture of Temagami. And therefore it makes it the perfect paradise for the wild harvest.
I've never been to the Canadian Shield before. It's so familiar. I feel like I have been here before. As I'm thinking about the dinner that I'm going to make for Les, I've got all these different nuances. It's so complex. There's so much to choose from. It might be hard for me to hone it in, but I see green, I smell trees, I smell mushrooms, I see water.
Well, I didn't even have to go far. There's already food right here. Yeah. This is going to be a treat for Paul. This is a plant called, or shrub called sweet gale. The sweet gale is very prevalent in Temagami. It's all along the shorelines and oh, it's so aromatic. We can eat this, we can make tea out of it. It's got a lot of uses. As always, I prefer to prune rather than just cut and take. Oh, wait a second. All right. Yes. Hazelnut. That's going to be a nice surprise for Paul. A little green, not quite in season, but still, Paul will be able to do something with these. Ha, triple. They look like little jester's hats. Leave some behind for the little critters too. I'm a little early in season, but not too early, because we have blueberries. So this is what I wanted to climb the rock to gather. Were the blueberries, because I knew this patch was up here, but also this reindeer moss. It's time to gather. What I love about this is foraging for edible wilds forces you to slow down. It forces you to often sit on the ground or kneel on the ground. It forces you to reach into bushes, to dig with your fingers. I use my fingers a lot. I don't use too many cutting implements. Even, you know, having my dog join me, why not? You know, it's the perfect opportunity, isn't it? Yeah. This is wonderful. Here are two different kinds of reindeer moss or caribou lichen. It goes by several common names. And this makes a wonderful food item. The normal way to use this is to dry it and put it in blancmange or soups or in flours. I have no idea what Chef Paul will do, but I'm going to bring him some home. I think I made good use of that trail for the harvest I was looking for, the blueberries, the lichen. I want to paddle across to a bay that I know of, and I'm pretty sure I will find a number of different species of plants. You don't need to go to a store for aromatherapy. Just come out in the forest. You sit out here and collect something like this sweet fern, and you are bombarded by a billion combinations of aromatherapy, making you feel stronger, better, healing you. This is forest bathing at its best. This is one of those plants that actually has an incredible amount of medicinal properties to it and advantages. For example, just crushing the leaves and inhaling the perfume is said to relieve headaches. And it goes on from there. It's a wonderful plant. This one here, there usually is plenty of it in a forest like this, is Sarsaparilla. This is what I'm looking for right here. Here's a little plant biology. The rhizome is simply kind of like a rootstock that is just under the ground. Usually it will shoot roots down and stems up. That's a nice one. The leaves itself, the plant, and the rhizome we can use for sure. So there's one. Go gather a bunch more. As near as I can tell, the anchor's gonna hold. It's windy out here, not my favorite for fishing, but how can I complain? So this is sweet gale. It is a wonderful aromatic shrubbery. It's a bush. Right, so I make sweet gale tea all the time. But for your purposes, think of it like a bay leaf that you can eat. This is called Sarsaparilla. All of the intense spicy nodes for this plant are in the rhizome. And then the final of the aromatic section is sweet fern. This is something that is primarily a tea. So we're not going to eat the leaves. You can't cook and eat it like spinach or anything like that. You can make a tea out of it. Moving right along, do you recognize these guys?
No.
This is hazelnut, beaked hazelnut.
That's hazelnut.
Right, well, beaked hazelnut, all right? Not the same that you would get from a farm, but you can use it in all the same classical ways. All right, you knew I went out fishing yesterday, and there's the result. Beautiful smallmouth bass. These guys are pound for pound the best fighting fish there is. This one here, believe it or not, this is not for garnish, this is edible. All right, so this is reindeer moss, caribou moss, reindeer lichen. It's got sort of different common names. And lastly, you don't need any introduction to this. Wild blueberries. It's a bit early in the season. You may find that they're more acidic than normal. All right, lastly, what I'd like to do is go pick you up a couple of other ingredients. I saw them on the way, but I haven't gathered them yet. So I've actually got to get in my canoe and cut across the bay to get these last items, and I'm going to leave you to get to know what I brought you so far, but here's your bounty, man.
Sweet Gale. That one I've got ideas for already. I'm getting a little bit of like a star anise green bean out of that. Super interesting. I've used this before in the kitchen a couple of different ways. Number one is just capitalizing on the aesthetics. Another thing that I've done with this is actually deep fry it and dehydrate it, season just with salt, and it's a great textural experience. Today I'm going to do something different with it, I think. I have had hazelnuts a lot in the kitchen in the past, but when I buy hazelnuts, they come in bulk. I've never really had to dig to find the nut inside before. I have used green nuts in the past, so I'm wondering if this is going to bring the same characteristic of working with like a green almond. That's fascinating. It is just a little hazelnut.
You know, gathering in a spot like this, you've got to multitask, for lack of a better term. I'm looking at all of it, not just this cattail up here I'm about to gather, but I'm thinking, are there any clams in the water? How about that yellow pond lily? Is it ripe and ready for the seed popping? Things like that. There's just so much to choose from here. That's how I really want to do it. I don't want to pull up the root system, I just want to get it just like that. Now, at one point, I'd actually introduced Chef Paul to the broadleaf cattail. These are narrowleaf cattails, and they're going to be in different stages at different times of the year because we're much further north than the broadleaf cattail that I'd originally shown him at one time. So you're in one area thinking, too late, missed the season. You drive a couple of hours, and a different variety of the same plant is actually perfectly in season. It's these kind of thick transitional zones, especially transitioning from the forest into water, where the variety of plants picks up immeasurably. So you're back up in the trees, and you might have 6 things. You come down a little bit lower in elevation, you get towards a swamp, you get into this transition zone, and now you're looking at 31 different plants that you can harvest. So these areas are always great places to be. I love coming to swamps for that reason. And case in point, look at this right there. Isn't that beautiful? These little cedar buds are gonna go home as well. Oh my gosh, that's delicious smelling. Paul is rich with aromatic wild edibles for this meal. I'm excited to bring all of this back to him. Remember that I told you I had a vegetable that you will need to cook and that doesn't necessarily carry much of its own flavor?
I do, yeah.
And that it's a challenge. It's a tough one. Rock tripe. I know you've seen it locally as we've hiked around.
Yeah.
I have eaten it in survival situations and found it kind of disgusting. So there you go. There's your challenge.
For the heads
yeah, exactly. Loads of cattail.
Oh, familiar.
I'm gonna be real careful of these little cedar buds. Take one of those and crush it and smell it. Even taste it if you like.
Wow.
That's something, and I know that you wanted it. So I absolutely brought you some more cattail flour. All right.
Thank you. This stuff totally reminds me of asphalt. It's got the texture of like a shingle off the roof of a house.
I'm going swimming. I'll be back for dinner.
Okay. See you in a bit. The thing that I can definitely see is as I cook this, I'm going to get a mushroom flavor out of it, but I also can see that it's going to suck up moisture and kind of be like a sponge Super intriguing. Some sweet fern. I'm working on the rock tripe right now. The texture of it reminds me of seaweed now that I've had a chance to clean it and play with it. I'm thinking of making it into almost like noodles. I've got a pot going and I'm gonna drop these guys right in there. And nothing is better with soup than some good old campfire bread. So I want something delicious to go with the bread, and I know these little cedar buds are super powerful. I think if I add them to butter and I can flavor butter with them, they'll be just perfect. It's called compound butter. I can just literally squish these guys up using my fingers. I've made many flavored butters before. It gives me or any home cook the ability to add flavor to a dish, but componently. I'm just gonna add a little bit of garlic.
What do we got? Wow.
Cedar butter.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then I made bread, and I shaped it like a rock. And then here, my friend, is a bowl of the rock tripe put into a soup. And if you think of sweet and sour, you know, that Chinese recipe that seems to be popular at almost every Chinese restaurant, that was the flavor influence for this.
Okay. Last time I had rock tripe, it was a survival situation, and it did not look like this. And it did not taste like this either. This is nice, Paul.
Does it kind of remind you of seaweed? The way it eats?
The way it eats, yes. It doesn't have that saltiness of seaweed, but the way it eats, you're right, texture-wise. Wow. Hint of mushroom. Obviously the hint of the earth. You've just transformed a survival food into a delicacy. Yet again.
Excellent.
Nice job.
Cheers.
On to the next.
Next.
I'm just gonna keep eating some of the rock bread. Bread looks like rock, but it sure doesn't taste like rock.
I almost forgot the most important thing about this bread. Reindeer moss flour.
No way! I can sense it, like just how flaky and crispy and all at the same time with the cedar butter. What a combination.
I want to get on the next course. I'm taking out the fine bones from the fillet of the smallmouth bass. These guys are dangerous. When people eat them, they easily can get these stuck in their throats. A bit of diligence is an important thing right now. All right. Cattail. I'm going to use this stuff because of the cucumber flavor to make a salad. That's going to go with the bass. And I'm going to cut this stuff quite fine. A simple salad, oil, vinegar, salt. Now I'm adding a little bit of vinegar. It's going to work well. The dish I'm going to make for Les for the main course is a super simple one. I want to showcase the bass. I'm going to carefully pan sear it. In the same pan that the fish is cooked in, I'm going to make a beurre blanc, which is essentially a buttercream sauce. French cuisine at its finest with a cabin twist. Sweet fern in there for basting. Just want to extract some of the flavor out of that. Leeks, shallots. Time for some good Ontario Chardonnay. The acid in the wine cleanses the pan of all sorts of caramelizations of the fish that have taken place in the cooking process. Cream. I know the French don't do this very often, at least not that I know of, but I'm gonna put some cattail flour into the sauce. I think the flavor is gonna work so well, adding a nuttiness to it, but I also think it might help me thicken it. Time for the corn. The little bones, I try to get all of them, but you know how that is.
It's fish. That is creamy without being heavy, delicate without being weak.
Just in straight pans here, in butter. I use some of the sweet fern in the butter to kind of flavor the butter itself.
Okay.
I also took a little bit of the cattail that you brought me, and I did a quick pickle on it. I made a little bit of a salad out of it, so there's going to be a texture.
It's thick, but not too thick. Rich, but not too rich. And I'm not losing the bass on this, which is really important to me. Being a bass fisherman, someone who grew up eating bass, the classic sort of beer batter in the frying pan kind of thing, I don't want to lose the flavor of the bass. And you've actually highlighted it, I think. We haven't lost it at all. This is delicious, Paul. Absolutely delicious.
Thank you.
I've been eating smallmouth bass all my life, but it's never tasted like that. Never.
We got to open this up. Have as much surface area exposed as possible. Combination of sweet Gale and sweet fern. So the syrup that I have cooking right now, if all goes well, it should totally accentuate the flavor of the blueberries. One thing with these hazelnuts is they've got these fine hairs. After doing many, they tend to get annoying, like they get embedded in your skin a little bit. Kind of like stinging nettle, but not quite as bad. Last one. Right now I'm making a sour cream whipped cream. My plan is to take hazelnuts that have been cooked in browned butter. I'm going to add the butter to this to give it a really good shortbread flavor, and the hazelnuts are going to give it a really nice crunch. I think the trick is not to hit these too hard. Do you know what really blows me away? Is the amount of stuff that Les has brought me. Unbelievable. These guys are almost done. Next step is time for fire. I want to crisp up some of this reindeer moss in the brown butter. So this entire dish is made to amp up the blueberry flavor. I made a layer flavor with a simple syrup, and in there I used the sarsaparilla.
Sarsaparilla.
Thank you, the sarsaparilla.
You know, actually, that is the thing that it's so easy when you're teaching edible wild plants to say sarsaparilla, because we're used to that word, sarsaparilla, but it's actually sarsaparilla.
And I also added in the sweet fern and the sweet Gale.
Oh, yeah, I can't talk. Oh, wait a minute. Let me try it with the reindeer moss, deep fried in brown butter. Let's do the whole mixture. No offense, because I love great restaurants, but why do we ever go to restaurants when we can have something like this? This is what I want to bring to people, is this idea that the wild harvest is not relegated to bush-savvy people like me, because I am preconditioned to my survival foods. That's what I know about cattail. That's what I know about rock tripe, survival food. But it is easy enough for anyone to do a small hike, a short hike, go a small distance, and gather something that becomes delicious on the kitchen table, and you're proving that out with me, so thank you. This is all about working together. The tea, blueberry twigs and leaves. It should be subtle and smooth.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
This whole adventure for Paul and I has been the essence of the wild harvest. This is my cabin in the woods in Temagami, Ontario, a place that I know very well, and I haven't had to go far. A few minutes of paddling, a few minutes of hiking, and I'm coming back with bags full of local foods that Chef Paul can turn into an amazing dish. This truly is the essence of the wild harvest.